Let's take it back then to how you actually got started in the first place. So, what kind of drew you into being a therapist in the first place, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, that's a really big question. It's something I've asked myself a few times. I'm really trying to pinpoint, oh, where did this start from? There's so many beginnings I could start from. I could say, I think I always had some part of me that was interested in that work from a very, very young age. Um, I think I noticed about myself as well the particular, I don't know what you'd call them, qualities or traits or skills that I had lended themselves to the work quite well from quite a young age.
Hmm.
um I think there were some key things that happened in my life that then probably became more of a catalyst for it.
Hmm.
So when I was 17 at school, a friend of mine attempted suicide. Um, we were all very young, obviously. And I think the news affected me more than I probably realized at the time. It was only in later years I look back and think, I think that had a big effect because of the fact that I recall the shock that my friend was apparently one of the happiest open people I knew. That realization in that moment at that young age, that what you see and what someone's experiencing internally can be diametrically opposed, um, changed how I spoke to people from that moment on. So when I went to university, I really have quite a vivid memory of not taking people's answers at face value. So if I said to someone, "How are you?" and they said something like, they happened to just mention in passing that they've moved, just for argument's sake, they've moved from Manchester to London, and they, I don't know, that their dad has left their mum or something like that. Even if they said it in a passing comment, I would always clock that and think, okay, they might be presenting right now happy, but I might just check that out with them at some point. So I think that probably was an element of what led me into that way of looking at things. Um, but then when I was 20, and I hope I'm much, when I was 20, I had an acute experience of anxiety myself. Oh, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, you just kind of slightly there, but I can hear you now. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Where did you hear up to?
So at 20, you had a acute anxiety. He said.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Because so at 20, I went on a year abroad. I was studying French and classics at university at the time. So that was a 4-year degree and it included a year abroad in France. And going abroad triggered a kind of acute anxiety in me. So I'm having panic attacks. I developed a sort of acute experience of OCD. So they call it, I don't know how much you know about, they call it Purero. Have you heard of Purero?
I've never heard of Purero before. What is that? If okay to ask.
In in reality, it's just OCD, but the
Mhm.
reason they call it Purero is because there's no physical compulsions. So usually, what the case with OCD is that often you'll have the obsessive thoughts and then you have the compulsions to relieve the thoughts. With Purero, all that means is that the compulsions are happening, but they're internal. So
Mm.
that it would be things like praying or trying to get reassurance internally, trying to reassure yourself all the time that the thing you're afraid of happening isn't going to happen. So that's why it's called Puro. And the nature of the thoughts are very, very distressing. Like they're called intrusive thoughts, intrusive
Mm.
images. All of that got triggered in my move abroad. And obviously, at the time, I didn't know what was happening or why. With hindsight, I know exactly what was happening and why. And that was my first experience of having a problem that I needed to get some support for. And that was when I first had a therapist. And I would say probably the grand answer to your question is that after that, I was more inclined to think I want to help people who have that experience. It started off with helping people with that experience specifically, and then that grew into wanting to help people generally more. And then I became a Samaritan's helpline listener. And I did that initially because I wanted to understand whether doing that kind of work would impact me emotionally to the point where would I take things home? Because I was quite a sensitive person, and I worried that I might let it all get to me too much. Actually, doing Samaritans helped me learn that I was quite strong enough for that not to happen. So that kind of solidified the decision. I think I'm going to train now and be a therapist, or train to be a therapist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing because you actually asked my next question about being a Samaritan's helpline caller. You did it for 4 years, is that correct? Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. I mean, how did you
Yes.
find it doing that for 4 years? Was it okay for you?
Yeah, it went. The 4 years went very quickly, but it was good to do it for a long time because I could see the cumulative impact of it, and it was pretty heavy duty. It was a shift would be 3 hours a week, so you would do 3 hours a week, and then I think it was every 8 weeks, you'd do a night shift, and a night shift would be um, from midnight till 6 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
So I would either do a night shift on the Saturday into Sunday or the Sunday into Monday. I always did them at the weekends. Those were the ones that were the most eye-opening moments. Those, especially the Saturday night into Sunday morning. That was when you got the people who were either coming back from a night out, who were really struggling, either because they were under the influence or they weren't out and they wanted to be. And then around about 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you'd get a sudden shift from the people who were coming back from a night out to the people who were getting up early to work on a Sunday morning. So dustbin men, or people who were living alone, who were feeling sad and lonely, couldn't sleep, people calling from prison, people calling people who were homeless on the street, who were out and about as people were out and about. You'd just you'd hear from the whole spectrum of society on those night shifts, and those shifts were the ones that stay with me the most, I think. Yeah. um it was, yeah, it was a good experience for 4 years.
Yeah.